Hello everyone, it's a beautiful sunny morning here in Alconbury, Huntingdonshire. I think Monica's calling us over. She wants us to have a look at her new car. She's traded in her old KA and she's now bought a Mini. Hello. Nice car, Moni. Can we have a little tour?
Sure.
One day if we get, I already have had it on the ramp, but we can't do that at the moment because all the ramps are taken up. Look at that. Isn't that flash? I know the early Minis were quite nice looking, but these ones are sort of like gone to a whole new level. That is really plush. You like this, didn't you?
Yep, I love it.
I wasn't a fan of Minis when they first came out, but I do like this one. This is actually a Cooper, is it not?
Yep.
Look at that. What a cool car. John Cooper works. There you go. Does the heater work in this cold weather?
Yeah.
Well, that's a plus, isn't
and
it?
it's got a bum heater as well, so.
Yeah. I bet it works better than the Ford KA we've got in the garage,
Yeah.
which is the subject of today.
I would think so. I think any car works better than that KA at the moment.
Yeah, we've got a little story about a KA. It was on the sales lot. I'll run you through that in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I suppose you're going to have a nice day in the office.
And you have a nice day in the garage.
Yeah.
Shall I pop in?
Yeah, I'm sure to. Look at the sun.
It's lovely, and that's why it's so cold.
It's just freezing. Frost everywhere. Anyway, see you later, Moni. Oh well then, we suppose I better get on with the subject of today. You ain't going to learn much from this, but I thought I'd run through it anyway because it's about the most interesting job that's going here as of yet. That is the front bumper of a 10 plate Ford KA. I've also removed the headlights, battery tray, air filter, and the car is just through here. That Lexus has got issues, but that's another problem altogether. Here she is. Look at that. This is the newer shape Ford KA, even though it's like 13 years old, but it's a 10 plate. It's a 1.2 litre engine, and if you know your Ford engines, this is not a Ford engine. This is a Fiat engine. And also one thing to note here, pretty much the whole car isn't even Ford. That is a Fiat 500. Anyway, this particular engine, and I will say this, was probably built long before Noah's Ark was even built. This is a 1.2 litre Fiat Fire engine, which means fully integrated robotised engine. It was Fiat's first engine where they actually had like mechanical machines putting the engine together more than not. So I guess it was quite a revelation back in 1985 when this engine was introduced. Anyway, getting to the point, why is this engine out of the car? Well, I didn't take it out for my bloody health, did I? Look at this. I've got a bar on the crank pulley. Can you kind of guess? No, the cam belt hasn't broke. I'll tell you the story. This particular KA was purchased from another trader. The boss drove the car from the trader's yard, which I guess was about 15 miles away. I think it might have been somewhere in Peterborough. He drove it here to Alconbury, no problem at all. The car drove perfectly fine. Got it here. He then had it valeted, had it checked over, put it on the sales lot, and that was it. It just sat on the sales lot. It was all ready, all cleaned up, ready for sale. Last Friday, and by the way, this particular car, it had a service. It's got a brand spanking new oil filter on it and new oil in the engine, so I've already checked that. So it had a little service before it was even sold to us. But last Friday, the boss called me over because he was starting all the cars on the sales lot, because in this weather, if you leave the car sitting around, the batteries keep going flat. So he's starting the cars up, making sure they're all going. And this KA was the only car that wouldn't start up. So he called me over, we had the jump starter on the car, and I was cranking the engine over, and it was cranking over like really nasty, like it sounded like the starter motor was dragging really badly. So I thought, that's flipping starter motor, that is. So I got another start motor for it, put it on the car, turned it over, and it is exactly the same. And at that point, sort of like alarm bells were ringing. I then removed the starter motor, the new one I put on, thinking maybe there's a problem with the new starter. Lo and behold, I then put the car in gear, in the 4th gear with the handbrake off, and tried to push the car forward on the ramp, and it wouldn't, it just went boom like that. The engine would go backwards, but it wouldn't go forwards, and to me that says the engine was literally locked up. I even jacked the car up on one front wheel, put it in gear, and tried to turn the wheel to turn the engine over. It wouldn't turn over. So as you can imagine, at this point, I was kind of thinking to myself, yeah, there's something pretty damn serious wrong with this engine. So we decided to take the engine out, and as it stands now, I put a bar on the crank pulley. I can turn it, it will turn, but flipping heck, that is tight. It's turning over really tight. I would say, for whatever reason, the crankshaft shells or the main bearing shells have picked something up, and that's what's locked the crankshaft, and that's why it's so hard to turn over. I don't know why this has happened. It's just one of those things. It's a bit of a bizarre problem, considering the car was driving absolutely perfect, and it just sat in the yard minding its own business. Go to start it like a week later, and that's it. Would not, well, it cranked over a little bit, but the engine kept like locking up. It would turn over a bit, sounded awful, and then would lock up and then turn over a bit more. But it sounded absolutely awful. And now, I mean, I'm really putting some strain on this bar to turn that over. So it is turning, but God almighty. Yeah. We come to the conclusion, for whatever reason, that engine is buggered. So we got onto Rawn's breakers yard, and we have got ourselves another engine. Quite cheap, that was £300 that engine. And I checked the cam belt on this one, and it's practically a brand new cam belt that's been put on there, so I shan't bother changing that. So I'm going to start swapping all the bits over and put this other engine in and hope it works. I'm sure it will. I would like to know why this engine has taken a dump, but unfortunately this engine is like a recon. They want the, well, not a recon, they exchange engine. The scrapyard want the engine back so they can weigh it in, no doubt. So there's a surcharge on this engine, so I can't really strip it. But I just thought I'd highlight this problem because it was a bit bizarre. It's not the kind of thing that happens every day, especially when there's no reason for it that you can obviously put your finger on and say that's why it's gone wrong. Anyway, I'll carry on swapping the bits over, and I'll try and get the new engine popped in. Well, we're getting there. That's the wiring loom off. Generally speaking, when you remove wiring looms on cars, they're pretty straightforward when you put them back, because the wires tend to have a certain length, so they'll only line up with something. But you've still got to be careful. It's worth taking photographs anyway, just so you know where it routes through the engine and all that under the manifold. I will say though, as the wiring goes on this car, I found it very nice because under the bonnet here, to disconnect the wiring from the car to the engine, you have one ECU plug there and one connector there. That's it. That's all there is to disconnect, and that just tucks up on the bulkhead. That is cool. So nice and easy, I like that. What I don't like are the flipping radiator hoses. You see these cheap and nasty Fiat clips? They're a one-time fit. They're strapped on tight, and the only way to remove it is to cut it off. So I'll replace that with a Jubilee clip. The reason being, I need to get this lower radiator hose off to put onto the new engine. Unfortunately, I can't, if anyone mentions this, I can't take this pipe out of here because it's a different diameter. I've already tried. It's a different diameter where it goes into there to what it is on this engine. So there are some subtle differences. I've decided to fit a new clutch kit while I'm at it because this no doubt is the original one, and that is just about on the rivets there, so there is no way in hell I'm putting this back in. Yeah, that's going to have a new clutch. See ya. Well, she's all back in. I have topped the gearbox up 1.7 litres, or until it runs out of the level bung, which is just there. So we've got gearbox oil. I have put 3 litres of oil in the engine. Until I get an auto data, I'm not exactly sure how much oil it takes, but I'll sort that out in a minute. Brand spanking new oil filter. I've got new Jubilee clips because I cut that bloody stupid Fiat clip off and put a proper Jubilee clip on it in various places. So it's all ready to go. I just wanted to actually point out here that initially I was going to drop this out the bottom because there's no way it's going to come out the top by the looks of it. And I just realised when I took the front bumper off, you need to take the front bumper off to get these bars here out, because these make up part of the subframe. But as I realised, when the front end is off, the radiator pack and everything comes off in one great big unit. It's quite heavy. There's easier if there's 2 of you, but that all comes off in one great big lump. So I thought, aha, this could be quite easy. So I ripped that whole front end off, then realised that if I just put the crane on the engine, it will just pull straight out the front. And it did. It's a little bit tight in there, I have to say, but with a little bit of jiggery pokery, we got it in and out. So anyway, I'm going to bark it up and see if it goes. I shall prime the fuel system a couple times, get the fuel there. There's no exhaust on the car, so there's no coolant in it either. Whoa! Excellent! Well, that started up easy enough. Sounds better without an exhaust actually, I might leave it off. Well, I suppose I better put the front end back on now, which has the radiator hoses, so I can now put some coolant in the engine. So yeah, good result. It's now running. So that's our front end all on. There are 4 little 10mm bolts, 2 either side, that hold that top slam panel in place. They're the best ones to get on to start with. And then you've got another 4 bolts that hold this crash bar in place. So and then you've also obviously got your nuts and bolts that hold this bar at the bottom onto your subframe as well. So, and of course all your wiring's down here for your headlights and that. But yeah, there isn't a lot of room. Once this front panel's on, it's pretty damn tight down there. So it's actually nice to have it off if you're doing any work on this car. Not that you're going to do much on the front end unless you're changing the catalytic converter. Yeah, all 4 bolts that hold the lower crash bar onto the lower part of the front subframe, they were all rusty as hell. So it was well worth giving them a good clean up and putting some grease on them so they don't rust up again so quickly. I've just fitted the exhaust, which, to be honest with you, wasn't exactly easy. The bloody stabiliser bar here that holds the engine in the correct position was like, if you have the bolt in, you can't fit the exhaust on because there's too much of a gap to fit onto this downpipe. If you take the bolt out, the exhaust is in the actual way of the bolt, so you can't get the bolt in. But we done it with a lever bar and pushed the exhaust back. So, yeah. Ford KA, we're nearly done. It wasn't actually a bad job. All I had to do was disconnect the bottom ball joints, take the drive shafts out. That was it for the suspension. So, and I'm actually really glad I didn't drop it at the bottom, because I would have then had to have dropped all this subframe down and unbolted the steering rack and taken these front bars off. You see they bolt up here. I took the bolts out ready to take these off, but then realised I didn't have to take these off at all. So I just left them in place. I'll put them bolts back in a minute. These cooling systems do have to be bled to get the air out. On top of the heater hose, there's a little bleed screw. So they can be a bit tight, so you've got to be a bit careful with them. So the theory is we'll top the radiator up with coolant. The coolant should be flowing out of that bleed screw, and it's not. So what I shall do, I shall now, as the radiator is quite full, I shall run the engine and see if we can get anything coming out of there. There we go, there's the coolant coming out. So it's bleeding the air out and the coolant will start flowing out. Once the coolant starts flowing out in a neat stream, then we'll screw that back in. I have to say, these cooling systems are not exactly easy to bleed. I literally had to run the engine with the bleed screw on that heater hose down there undone and keep topping the water up and having tighter there to rev the engine, keep the revs up until I got all the air out, because the heater, this has one of these electronic heater controls in it. So I set the heating to fully hot and it was stone cold. It was absolutely stone cold coming out of these vents. And only after about 10 minutes of pissing around, it eventually started to heat up, and now the heater is lovely and warm. So if you're running one of these up and trying to bleed the air out, be prepared to take a little bit of time and messing around to get the air out. So yeah, I don't even like these bottles. They're flipping horrible. You can't see in them properly. You can't even see through them. So I've got to like shine a torch down there to actually see the level. Horrible. Cheap and nasty, that's all I can say. Anyway, the cooling system's bled, all the air's out, heater's hot. Good result. Now I'm going to put the front bumper back on. Woo! Done. So, sayonara, old fire engine. Yeah, I tell you what, when I can turn it, but flipping heck, it feels rough and it's really tight. Yeah. I bet you the crankshaft shells have picked something up, main bearings or big ends, and that's what's locked it. Well, it's not completely locked, it does turn over, but it's not good. Anyway, that's another job done. The bumper's back on, it's all back together, it's running like a little treat. So this is, by the way, this is a titanium, a KA titanium, like the top model. How much? $3,995. In actual fact, I didn't even see what kind of mileage this has got on it. Let's have a look, shall we? Oh, 97,000 miles. 97,000 miles. So it's just had a brand new cam belt. New clutch as well, because that was nearly worn out. So yeah, I shall give this a run up the road and then we'll stick it back on the sales lot. Well, I thought it best we'll give this little KA a run around the block just to make sure it goes all right. Whenever you've done a major job like fitting an engine, it's always worth a good road test. You never know, it happens, you can leave something loose and you get knocks and clangs and all sorts. So we shall see. This is the titanium, the top model, the creme de la creme of Ford KAs. It's got all electronic heater, which is all very fancy. And notice you've got electric motors to operate the air distribution and the hot and cold and all that. All very nice till it goes wrong. Well, hopefully it will stay working. It's not bad actually. For a small little girl's car, it ain't bad at all. Not too keen about the stereo though. That looks a bit on the pants side, a bit cheap. But it's certainly smooth. Oh look, we've got air conditioning. Well actually it should have airbags. Little pocket above the headlining. Yeah. Electric windows. It's quite nice. Oh look, electric mirrors. It's got all the gear, hasn't it? I don't know why they've gone back to using these old Fiat engines though, because Ford used to put their own engines in these cars and now they've gone all like Fiat derived sort of thing. But that's a lot of cars these days, really, isn't it? A mix and match of different companies like Peugeot. Peugeot seem to get all of their engines and various bits and pieces in many different models of cars. Anyway, that's not a bad little drive. It's smooth and quiet. Right, I shall park it up, recheck the oil level, coolant level and all that. And that'll do. Cool. Well, I have rechecked the engine oil and coolant levels. Everything is splendid. So that is about it. This lovely little KA can now go back up for sale. And we have an actual sheet in the window here telling you of all its features. Power steering, central locking, electric windows, electric mirrors, airbags, CD player, aircon, alloy wheels, heated seats, tinted rear, heated seats? Bloody hell, I never saw that switch. Tinted rear windows, ISOFIX, auto port, cigarette lighter, cup holders, height adjustment seat and steering wheel adjustment. So I guess you could say, for a little car, it's got quite a lot. Pretty well fully loaded. Not bad at all. Anyway, that's my job done for today. Thanks for watching everybody. I guess I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.